I wanted to start with China being labeled as a developing country. Today, I led a group of 21 senators, it's a bipartisan group, introducing legislation to end lending to China through the multilateral development banks. You know, since 2016, China has received about $23 billion from the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank. American taxpayers, we are the largest contributor to these banks. And it's completely unacceptable to me for Americans to be subsidizing loans to China. The administration continues to allow American taxpayer dollars to go to the Chinese Communist Party. I believe it needs to end. Not another dime should be approved. You know, these banks are designed to assist developing countries. And China is no longer a developing country. It was years and years ago when some of these international organizations were put into place, but the designation hasn't changed. You know, China is the second largest economy in the world, clearly has the financial resources, the access to capital to meet its own needs without assistance from the international community. But the Chinese Communist Party continues to exploit this outdated label as a developing country to get these preferential treatments and loans. It's as a developing country, quote, developing country, China also receives funds from international bodies, mostly paid for by American taxpayers. China just got $1.4 billion from the multilateral fund at the Montreal Protocol, which was from back in the 80s. So let's be clear, this money moving from America to China, to me, is making China stronger and America weaker. And, you know, and this is at the time when China is blatantly flying spy balloons over the nation, stealing intellectual property, sending fentanyl and other opioids into the U.S., increasing military aggression. You know, we've got the whole list. So it just seems that China is playing the international community as well as our own administration as fools. Their goal is simple. They want to be the world dominant power. So do you believe that China still qualifies as a developing country? And, you know, why should American taxpayers be supporting lending and financial assistance that goes to China?
Senator, I very much appreciate the point. I wanted on that specific question, I really have to defer to my colleagues at the Treasury Department. What I can tell you is this: I certainly see, as a general matter, China continuing to raise the banner of developing country in a variety of places that doesn't reflect the reality. Another part of this that I think is very important is on debt relief, where countries around the world that turn out to owe a lot of money principally to China and then desperately need relief. We're also a creditor. Countries in Europe are creditors, and elsewhere. The Chinese continue to insist on being treated differently in the technical parlance, not taking the same haircut that everyone else is willing to take. That's unsustainable. Yeah. And in fact, in Sri Lanka recently, where we needed to help Sri Lanka get out of the devastating debt situation it was in, we came together and insisted that no one else would provide the relief unless China similarly treated its debt. So I agree with you that these are important things we have to work out. On the specific question, though, I really have to defer to the Treasury Department.
Yeah, because we are giving subsidized loans to a country that then turns around and can use this money to engage in predatory lending to developing nations, as you've described. Mm-hmm. So next, in terms of, I want to turn to European energy security. Mm-hmm. Europe has learned some really hard lessons following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. None are clearer than the need to have access to affordable and dependable supply of energy. So affordable, dependable. Mm-hmm. The word's not renewable, it's affordable, available, reliable energy. Russia has demonstrated over and over again its willingness to use energy as a weapon, continue to do that. The world has seen Russia threaten our allies and our partners with natural gas. Europeans understand the crucial importance of increasing U.S. oil and natural gas production and exports to them from here. Unfortunately, President Biden has not necessarily followed that path because of his approach on the issue of climate and carbon. So do you support increasing exports of American liquefied natural gas to help our allies and partners escape this dependence on Russia?
I do, and we have. Our exports to Europe of liquefied natural gas over the last years went up 140%. We made a commitment to Europeans, to our partners, in dealing with the aggression against Ukraine to do whatever we could to provide for their energy security as they worked to move away from that dependence. By the way, as you know, they've done actually remarkable things just in the space of a year to try to end that dependence, both in terms of gas and in terms of oil. But we dramatically increased our LNG exports here. Some of it we redirected from Asia. Some of it was a result of increased production. Oil production itself went up 11%, and that is a result of the policies that we pursued.
So then you agree Europe is much better off buying energy resources from the United States than having to buy it from our adversaries?
Absolutely.
Great. Wanted to talk about fentanyl. I mean, I'm from Wyoming. You'd think, well, how much fentanyl could be going there? Is not close to the border, but every state is a border state. Well, Wyoming has seen an astronomical increase in the amounts of death related to fentanyl. Our Division of Criminal Investigation, just in 2020, seized about 1,600 dosage units. This past year, 13,000 units, so a 13-fold increase in just a couple of, and that was only for 3/4 of the year. So what can we be doing more to work with the government of Mexico to stop the importation of fentanyl precursors from China?
Senator, I could not agree with you more. I think this is among the top, if not the top, challenges that we face. As you know well, the single biggest killer of Americans aged 18 to 49 is fentanyl, synthetic opioids. And we seized last year enough fentanyl to kill every American. So this is right at the top of the list. So just a few things. I think we have a comprehensive approach to this problem. Obviously, there's work that we're doing at home just to protect our own people in terms of trying to reduce demand, treatment, antidotes, et cetera. But what is critical are a few things. First, border security in itself. We have the technology that is being deployed more effectively now to the border to much better detect the fentanyl that's coming into the United States from Mexico. 96% of it is coming through ports of entry. The screening technology that's being deployed, that will make a difference. We're working with Mexico to disrupt the cartels. Mexico has actually taken, with our support, significant action to arrest and to disrupt the cartels, the criminal enterprises that are engaged in this, to shut down the labs, to go after the leaders. And then, at the same time, there's another aspect of this problem that goes beyond Mexico. One of the challenges, and it goes to China, among other countries, one of the challenges is the diversion of licit precursors into the illicit production of fentanyl. There is a lot that we are doing to try to rally the world to deal with this problem. And so, for example, voluntary agreements among countries and companies, because the private sector is critical, to share information, to better label products, to make sure that you know your customer when you're shipping a chemical that's legal but then is being diverted. All of these things are making a difference. For the very first time, I just came from the G20 foreign ministers meeting. For the first time, the United States got this on the G20 agenda. This is important because those countries, the wealthiest economies in the world, are the very ones, along with their private sectors, that can make a big difference. We're putting all of this together. We have, with the Mexicans, a joint synthetic drug action plan that we agreed to last year that is intensely focused on synthetic opioids, notably fentanyl. By the way, one of the other things that's happening, I'll be quick, is the Mexicans themselves are feeling the brunt of this, which is to say not only have they been a country where this is being made in and shipped through, but more and more Mexicans, unfortunately, are falling victim to synthetic opioids. So their feelings, I've spoken to President Lopez Obrador about this directly. He's seized with this. We are doing a lot in partnership with them to disrupt, to take these cartels down.
Let me just end with this, Mr. Chairman, and maybe put this to you in writing. But last week, the U.S. Border Patrol, because you mentioned border security, the Border Patrol Chief Ortiz testified before a House Homeland Security Committee hearing in McAllen, Texas. He was pointedly asked whether or not the Department of Homeland Security had operational control of the border, and the Chief of the U.S. Border Patrol said, no, sir. So, thank you.
The only thing I'd just add, if I could, Senator, is just in the case of fentanyl, I'm not speaking to the larger issue. What we really have to bear down on, and I think, it's not my direct area expertise, but based on what I know, on the border itself, as I said, about 95% of this is coming through the legal ports of entry. It's being smuggled in through those ports, not at points along the border. We do have technology that's much more effective than we've had to be able to detect it. You know, it's under the seats of cars, buried in trucks.
We've all had the tour and seen what they've described.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.